Hello and welcome to the News Minute. The results of this year's NEET examination has caused a lot of anxiety and distress among students and parents. Even the experts are surprised with the outcome of the NEET examination. There is a lot of social media buzz where people are calling it a NEET scam, and they are also holding the NTA, which is responsible for this entire chaos. To talk about this, I have with me Mr. Maheshwer Peri. He's someone who has been closely tracking all these examinations for several years, all the competitive examinations for several years. Sir, thank you so much for talking to us. Uh, Before I go to him, I just have one request for all our viewers. News Minute has been consistently tracking the NEET issue since even before it was introduced, when it was in the inception stage, and after the death of Anita from Tamil Nadu, this issue has gained a lot of prominence in Tamil Nadu, and we have been following these issues very closely. And there is a strong demand from Tamil Nadu that education should be brought back to the state list. So if you like our work and if you want us to continue doing that, so do become a subscriber of the News Minute and support independent journalism. So thank you so much for talking to us. You said that there are far too many things that have gone wrong in this examination, or that has never happened before. What exactly do you mean by that, and why are things so different this time as far as NEET is concerned?
No, I think we all should be. We all go by the data in front of us, right? You go through the previous many years of examination. Never has an examination thrown up 67 toppers for an exam. No, it is ridiculous. In fact, there are many years where there is not a single student who scored a 720 or something. Right? This time you have 67 of them top. And the problem is not just there. You keep moving down the ladder from the topper to the next level and the next level. You have more students than what is possible or probable. Not possible, but what is probable, right? Last year, if you were scoring 650, you would have been on a 6,800 rank. This time it's 26,000. At 600, last time it was 28,000. This time it's 80,000. So there seems to be a massive score inflation that happened. And it doesn't seem to be normal. You look at what happened in Bihar, where there was a conversation of paper leak. Then we actually looked at the second part of it, which is Sonipat, where in one single center you have 8 toppers. And strangely, Shabbir, if you go through that list of 8 toppers, all of them don't have a family name. It's like Mahesh and Shabbir and all, right? So typically, if you go through an application, you not just ask your name, but your father's name, your grandfather's name, and anyone else's neighbor's name, right? But here, these kids didn't have the family name. In a typically, for any topper, coaching institutions fall head over heels and buy them to be claiming them to be their students. In this particular case, none of them were claimed by any coaching institution. So these are toppers, and no coaching institution claims that they are their students. Right? And I'm told one of them actually failed the class 12 test also, and all of them came from the same center. Right? So you have that. That's the second thing that happened. The third thing is, recently at Supreme Court, there is a bunch of students who went there who talked of a student from all over the country descending in Godhra to take the test in a school called Sri Jalaram School, which, by the way, the supervisor and a geography teacher of the school was caught and was arrested. Right? So when you see, you on one hand you have the news that leaks have happened. On the other hand, you have this score inflation that happened, which is very, very abnormal. And we've always been, as a country, always been linking up to rumors of paper leak, and every exam that happens now, there is this news that, oh, this paper leaked this time. But this time, it is corroborated by the kind of scores that students have got and the kind of score inflation that students have got. How do we deal with the student when they come to us? We say, you get so many marks, you get into a good college. That's how we say. We can't tell them a rank because rank is relative. Score is absolute, right? In this particular case, what we told them, and typically 1-2%, hota hai. But this time it's dramatic. And that is where I say that, this exam seems to be rigged. I'm not holding back anything. I'm saying this exam seems to be rigged with the kind of data that we've seen coming outside. And NTM is found wanting. Please, you're asking.
So you have pointed out a number of issues with this year's NEET examination. The can you just explain to us the perfect score? 67 students getting, 720 out of 720. How is that even possible? You know,
It's not possible.
this suggests that there was clear malpractice, or what exactly seems to have happened?
No, what seems to happen, an investigation must throw light on that, right? The thing is, like last year you had three toppers. Previous year you had, no guy who got a 720 on 720. Right, and before that there was two and there was one. Like in the last 4 years, if you see, there were six guys who got 720 on 720, and that's, every year there would be one person who would get it. Like since 2022, there was only one person who got 715, not even 720. Right, so that's very very abnormal, extremely abnormal. And then you look at it, the results were declared in a shorty manner on the 4th of June when the exam results, the election results were coming in. So you have far too much of things that are trying to add up together. Now, what exactly they did, one doesn't know. One is not getting, that is for an investigation to deal with that. But at this point in time, the scores, the data, and the information that are coming back to us suggests that what's happened is abnormal, and it requires a very, very serious technical and forensic investigation.
And what is the NTA not telling us at this moment? Because the NTA
Oh,
seems to be responding to specific issues.
absolutely.
As a
So
whole,
that is the
what
problem.
exactly the NTA is not telling us?
Which is what? See, for example, Shabbir, across all the examinations, there would always be some questions for which the answers are disputed. And the experts get together and say, okay, for this question, the answer that you're suggesting might not be the only answer, or the question is slightly confusing or has can be interpreted two ways. So anyone who attempted the question will get the marks, or anyone who gave both the options, because let's say that there are two answers which are correct. The experts say, hey, listen, anyone who gave both options A and C are correct, and you'll get marks, and those kind of things. But this is announced along with the results being announced. Right. In this particular case, how did it come out? Because there were a bunch of people who got 718 and 719, which is mathematically impossible. Because in the NEET examination, you have 180 questions of 4 marks each. So that is 720, right? And then for every wrong answer, you have -1. So let's assume that you answer 117 out of 180, correct? Then your score is 716. And if you answer one negative, which is the 180th question, then it is 715. 717, 718, 719 is not possible. And when those scores came out, people questioned them. And that is when everyone got to know that there were grace marks and what. They should have told us about the grace marks much earlier along with the result. So every time when we ask a question, NTA is responding with something. Otherwise, it's not happening at all. And which is where the problem is, that these guys, and listen, the problem with this entire lack of transparency and the fairness is, when we knew a problem, we asked a question and they said, yeah, there's a problem. But we don't know many things that happened there because we don't know the process. All we can see an outcome, which is the result, and the scores, and the score inflation, and the rank inflation. No, because we don't know the process of how they went about, judging the whole thing, we don't even know what is the right question to ask at this point in time. We can only see the scores and say there's a problem, which is what we're doing.
You also pointed out the issue of Haryana, where 7 students from one particular exam center have scored, are toppers, which include they are part of the 67 people who scored 720 out of 720. What are we suspecting here? Is this a clear case of malpractice? 7 people with no family names. And how do you think the NTA is looking at these issues? Because we haven't heard anything from the NTA on these issues.
See, the thing is, Shabbir, whenever you have such kind of, like there are 4,500 centers in the country, 24 lakh students, 4,500 centers. So it's very clear that it's impossible for NTA to keep an eye on all the centers that are there. But there is always a sample verification that happens. These kind of things, there is always a sample set that is picked up to create verification. Take, for example, the Godhra center that we're talking about. Right? When you actually have multiple students from different home state converging into a particular center which is beyond their home state, it should raise a red flag. Right. Similarly, when you have one single center where there are too many toppers, should it raise a red flag? What I'm trying to say is that when you create a set of sample centers that you want to keep an eye on and verify before you announce the result, then these are the red flags that you do. That the correlation between the home state versus the test center, the correlation between the class 12 marks versus the NTA score, the correlation between one center having too many high scorers, right? There are multiple checkpoints that you can create, and it is very, very simple. Most people do that. India seems to have not done at all that homework.
So we came across, an incident that happened in Haryana in Bahadur Ghar. In fact, where the students have claimed that two sets of question papers were given to them. Initially, they started writing for 30-40 minutes, and after that, that question paper was taken away, and then another set of question paper was given. So all these confusions happen, and then you have this case of inflated marks. Can you just break down to us that the issue of inflated marks? Why should students and parents worry about it, and what exactly is the process that is adopted here?
So the thing is about inflated marks, Shabbir, is that that if you get a particular rank, you get into a college, right? And the rank you get based on a score, right? The score leads to a rank, the rank leads to a college, right? So you take AIMS Delhi for a moment. Right? AIMS Delhi has in all 56 seats. And most of India who are the toppers now choose AIMS Delhi because it's the best medical institution in the country. Now, typically you have one or two top rankers and they will invariably get into AIMS Delhi. This time you have 67 of them. So for the first time in the history of India, that the topper of an examination is not likely to get a seat of his or her choice. How did that happen? That's because there were too many people who got that score. Right? And it keeps going on and on in terms of the data set that we're dealing with. I'll just tell you, read it out for you so that you understand the enormity of what we talk about.
Yes, right? Sir. Go ahead.
Let me look at the data set that I have.
But before that, just a quick reminder: if you have some questions about NEET, about this entire scam that has happened, you can go to drop your comment, drop your questions in our comment box, and we will be asking Maheshwar Peri to answer those questions for you.
Yeah. So, like we discussed, the 720 students, 720 marks, and 67 students. That itself is massive anomaly. So look at 700 L score, right? Last year, at a score of 700, the highest rank was 294. So between 700 and 720, you actually had 294 students sitting in between these scores, right? This time you have 1,770, right? That's a 6x, right? Then you go down to 675. At 675, last time you had 2,035 students. This year it's 11,600. Again 6x, right? At 600, last time the rank was 28,629. This time it's 80,468. And typically, Shabbir, you want to get into a decent government college, now you're dealing with a 20,000 plus rank. 20,000. And last time at 625, you were at 15,700 rank, which means that you would get into some good medical college. This time the rank is 53,504. All because score inflation happened and rank inflation happened. And never in the history of these examinations had such an inflation happened. Because as we say, we always talk to kids and say, "Beta, get so many marks for a college major." And that has gone up by 50 marks, 45, 50 marks. It is not normal. It's extremely abnormal. Like, it is as good as saying 67 toppers, which is not possible. Like, JEE advanced results came in just last week, this week, on Monday, I think the results came. The highest score was 355 on 360. The topper got 350 on 360. And by the way, that's the highest ever score for JEE advanced in the history of JEE advanced. But it's still not a perfect score, mind you. Before 2021, there was no one who got a perfect score in NEET. So this seems to be a massive thing. And the way the results were declared, like I've been a part of this examination system for the last 10, 12, 15 years. The results are always late by a couple of hours, but not, or maybe 5-6 hours early, or maximum on the day you do it. Not 10 days early. That's not possible for a 24 lakh student examination, which is pen and paper. By the way, the grades marks, it's so ridiculous that you actually forcing the students to seek courts, because it says that they've given grace marks to all those people who complained about them to the courts. Are you suggesting from now on that every student, once he writes the examination, must come out and file a petition in the court?
So write the examination and file a writ petition and then wait for the court order.
Because then the
so that's a new precedent.
Yeah, because then the court, they say NTA responds faster if you're in the court, and if you're going to the local where no one is bothering, right? That's not the way you run a country and run an examination where you instigate a bunch of students to go to the courts. This is instigation.
Okay, we also have a set of questions from our viewers. Ajay, retest for 1,563 students who got grace marks. Hypothetically, if these 1,563 students score higher marks than the first chance, it can play havoc for the rest of the kids, pushing their ranks further down by 1,500. How unfair is this to the other kids? Can they also approach Supreme Court? So that's one of the questions that has come here.
No.
Mahesh.
See, it's happened multiple times over that there are centers where the exam could not be held because of local issues. It happened in J&K, it happened during Ayodhya riots when I wrote my CA. The exam was held twice, right? And it always happens that some centers get into a problem and it was the exam is held 2-3 days later. Right? So it's never a problem that, or never a unique case that an examination has been held twice because a bunch of students could not, get on with it, right? It can be floods or natural issues or violence or whatever it is. There are multiple issues because of which it happens, right? And there is a very, very clear way of normalizing the whole thing, because you take, like, for example, even now you look at JEE. It is held over 4 days and 2 slots each, which means 8 slots are done. JEE examination is done over 4 days, right? And 2 slots a day. So you actually have 8 sets of papers and 8 group batch of students. But there is a very clear way of normalization. So it would never harm anyone because the normalization will ensure that the batch is normalized to this batch.
Okay.
So that would not create a problem for you.
Okay. One more question from Go ahead, sir.
Very different. When you actually give a chance only to those people who went to the court, you are actually working against the bunch of people who also had a similar problem but did not go to the court, because that's not their first port of call. And there might be 100,000 students, for all that you know, who actually got the paper late or whatever it is. See, in online test, what happens is you actually have a timestamp. I don't even know how these guys decided that these guys started 20 minutes late or 22 minutes late, because it's a pen and paper test. It's not a computer test. In computer-based test, you start the thing and you end it, you calculate 3 hours for that, right? In this case, that is not possible. So the problem here is you are giving an option for those who went to the court, or benefiting those who went to the court versus those who hope that you will do it by yourself. And that is completely wrong and unfair.
Also, the next question is from Shahid Akhtar. Why was NEET application portal reopened just for 2 days after 23 days of its closure?
Well, that's a mystery for me also, because it was open for 2 days and 2.5 lakh applications came in those 2 days. Never has it again ever happened that an application form was opened after it was closed, unless there was a persistent demand. And the number of applications that came in is massive.
Okay, then there is also another question from Bharat Raj. Is it true that some centers receive different question papers?
No, not really true.
Okay.
See, what happened was there was a bunch of students, because there are language issues now. People in English got Hindi, and those kind of issues happen. And again, those things happen, by the way. But it never happened that two kinds of question papers were received.
Okay, and also talking about these grace marks, sir, the 1,500 students were given grace marks for delay in exam centers. Probably, that was one of the main reasons why they got those grace marks. But how does this entire system work? Because this time it's unprecedented, and somebody was telling me that the grace marks range from 100 to more than 100, or like in some case it was like more than 200 or something.
Shabbir, first of all, to limit this problem to 1,563 is making this problem very petty, very small. The issue is not 1,563.
Exactly.
You have 1,006 and you have 24 lakh students, right? So as someone else asked, it wouldn't be unfair to someone else. Like 1,500 ranks open nature, you will get it into a different college, nothing more. Right? And it would not create, and not all these guys would be on the topper list that you know. So the issue is not 1,563. It is about the integrity of the examination and the sanctity of the examination. This particular case, I think both seem to have been massively challenged, or both are in question mark at this point in time, because NTA was not transparent. NTA never found itself accountable. NTA never came up front and talked of the issues at hand. NTA only answered to specific questions. The scores that are coming out are dramatically different, and there's a massive digression as compared to the previous years. The ranks that came out are digression as compared to previous years. They did not answer the paper leak case, which is people are talking about in Godhra and in Bihar and in Sonipat. There are multiple issues that we need to deal with. The 1,563 is the smallest thing. In fact, I told someone else today morning that by discussing the 1,563, we fall into the trap of what NTA set for us, where we limit the damage to only 1,563. The damage is beyond 1,563.
Okay, the NTA is making the issue look very small. And also, one more question that I wanted to ask about this grace mark is that they say that it was based on the 2018 Supreme Court order, but that order pertains to law examination, common law admission test, CLAT, and not for engineering or not for medical. So, on what basis the NTA decided that this order is applicable to NEET as well?
It's arbitrary. They wanted something to justify the thing. See, they did not tell us that there were grace marks. Only when we questioned that error in 718 scores and all, that they came up. Otherwise, we didn't even know that there were grace marks, mind you. If there was no student who got 718, 719, the grace marks issue wouldn't have come out, mind you. Right? And two, that order is very clear. It says that the amount of time that you have taken to take the test, if there's a delay in the paper, and the amount of time that you've taken to take the test, and the number of answers that you answered, and number of ones that you correctly answered, you actually create an algorithm where it talks about the time that you took, the score that you have, and normalize it and project it to the next level. Right? And that's it. Whenever you have these kind of issues, there has to be some way of creating this whole thing, right? But in this particular way, it's much more different.
Okay, we have a question from Mallikarjun. This is the same question that even I had. The Union Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan says that there is no paper leak as far as NEET is concerned. He is very categorical, and he says that it has never happened. So even before an investigation, even before something like this, like how can a minister make these statements when the issue is actually very, very sensitive?
Well, that is nothing new with this government, right? The issues. I'm sorry, I don't want to get into politics here. The thing is, his own government in Bihar has filed an FIR. His own government in Gujarat has filed an FIR. His own government, and both these are FIRs that are there in police stations, and so he must go and first check with them, and either correct them saying there is no paper leak and you filed a false FIR, or come and tell us that everything is fair because I've spoken to them. But it can't be that there's two FIRs lying there, and you come here and talk of everything being honest.
Okay. One more question, which is anonymous. Has this been going on for many years, but seems like the cheating was large scale now? What is the way out?
No, the way out, has it been going on for a long time? Yes, of course. See, there are two ways of dealing with this whole thing. Today, actually, I was shooting a video because I wanted to put out everything that I have, right? And we're talking of how the exams are rigged. And the exams, over the years, have, people have found a way of rigging them. And it's a fact. It's just that this time, the 67 toppers, the inflation of scores blew it up. Otherwise, in pockets, if you have this rigging that happens, all of us will go back to sleep and next day morning go and watch a Salman Khan movie. Right? In this particular case, it's the scale at which it operated was dramatically more, which is where we seem to be very outraged. But are you talking of an exam getting rigged? Yes, it's been happening for a long, long time. In fact, in 2021, Shabbir, about 820 students got into different NITs based on an examination that was taken remotely on their behalf when they were sitting in front of the terminal. And that's a CBI case that is sitting in the Delhi High Court. Right. So it happens. It always happened. This time, I think the scale is dramatically different. In fact, yesterday I was listening to a former IMA president who was also on the board of National Board of Exams. And he says, when we were there, we found a person within the system who was in cohorts with an agency outside who was manipulating the test. So it is there. It's always been there.
Now, I also watched your video where you talk about accountability and transparency. The NTA lacks all of it. So now what happens? Like, why is the NTA not coming forward to, clarify or answer these questions? Because like the things that we have been discussing, the things that have been discussed by several others who have been closely watching or monitoring the NEET examination, what has happened is large scale rigging, or what has happened is large scale malpractices. And why is the NEET talking about specifics and not talk about the whole issue?
Because they try to hide something. See, every time they try to delay.
And what are they hiding? And the question is, what are they not saying? What are they hiding?
You said that. Now you said large scale rigging, right? So they're hiding the large scale rigging. That's what I would presume till they come out with a proper response which clarifies everything. Like, for example, they say this inflation happened because the number of students increased. Listen, the number of students increased 10%. Your scale to marks thing went up by 6x. 6 times. Now, that you can see it on your face that there is something wrong, and NTA coming up with very, very hollow, shallow responses only makes it more serious and more suspicious.
Also, there is another question. Is there a way to ascertain whether grace marks were awarded by NTA is limited to only 1,563 students, or is it more than that?
See, Shabbir, you need to take it through a technical and forensic audit. And it's a simple thing. See, we live in a digital world where anyone who logs in and tries to interfere with the scores, you would know. Anyone who tries to change the score, you would know that. Anyone who's, like, for example, as a statistician, right? If I were to go and sit there, I will say, okay, tell me all the centers where more number of non-home state students are sitting there, right? Or is there any center where the scores are very high, and correlate that with the class 12th and class 10th marks? These are simple statistician tools that you can do to understand the red flags in some places that you can start inquiring about. But when we don't look at that and come with very sweeping generalized statements, it makes it much more suspicious.
And one of the reasons why NEET was brought is to ensure fairness and transparency. And this year, the entire process appears to be rigged. There are several malpractices that have come to light. In fact, we don't have a clear idea as to what exactly has happened in Bihar, in Haryana, and in Gujarat, Chhattisgarh. There are different petitions that have been filed in different courts. This is an issue that Tamil Nadu has been raising time and again. In fact, Tamil Nadu has been opposing NEET on the grounds of it's against social justice. It's against the students from rural background. So what exactly is the solution going forward, sir?
Oh, I wish I knew the solution. The thing is, now this is a larger philosophical call, right? So pardon me for not being very specific to your thing. Any examination tries to bring in transparency and fairness, right? Actually, I think more than fairness, it tries to bring in transparency. Right? But it is at the cost of affordability and access to good education. Examination. Like, for example, in Delhi, any student who wants to do undergrad must go through a CUET examination. You want to study further after class 12, you need to go through an examination because Delhi University is a central university. Entry into any of the colleges in Delhi is through the CUET only because it's a central university. Are you there, Shabbir? Hello?
Okay, there appears to be a little distraction.
Okay.
So if you have any more questions, you can drop your questions in the comment box. In fact, Mahesh, I'll get Mahesh to answer all those questions. If you have any doubts, anything related to NEET, we'll get it answered. Yes, sir, go ahead.
Yeah. So the thing is, whenever you do these examinations, what happens to students who study in government schools who can't afford coaching?
Hmm.
Because once you do put an entrance examination, your class 12 marks are demonetized. It doesn't matter whether you get marks there or not, because you're ultimately getting admission into an undergraduate course based on your score, on your rank in an entrance examination. Now, entrance examinations judge you by not what happens in the school or the classroom, but what happens beyond the classroom, right? And that's very, very unfair. And it also puts two people on the same pedestal. Me, my son getting 99 percentile and my driver's son getting 70 percentile are treated on par. That is so unfair. Because that person sitting somewhere in the hills is getting 70% is very, very good. But he's compared with my son who's got 19% because both of them belong to a similar category of students. So any examination which is standardized testing, standardized curriculum, standardized pedagogy, and standardized assessment will only create clerks and deputy managers, but it will not create entrepreneurs, because the student is channelized to say, okay, leave this for choice. This question will never come. This you don't need to study. It's never come in the entrance examination. The student is only focused on cracking an examination to get a score, but not learning, which is much
Hmm.
more broad.
And why is NTA, not being so transparent? Because if this is an agency that deals with the future of lakhs of students, that decides the fate of so many students, why are they not transparent in this case?
Because they're trying to hide something. Till they come out and respond, I'll always believe that they're hiding something than disclosing everything.
Right, sir. Thank you so much for joining us and answering all the questions of our viewers. In fact, if there are other questions too, in fact, I'll try and send it to Maheshwar Peri and get it answered. Thank you so much for talking to us, sir. And we will also be closely tracking all the developments related to NEET. And if there are many other developments, then definitely once again we'll get back to you, sir.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you so much. Bye.
So thank you so much for watching this live. It was Maheshwer Peri, who is the chairman and founder of Careers 360. He was someone who was explaining us about what exactly has happened in NEET, how he was probably suggesting that it was rigged. So he was demanding answers from NTA and how it can be made more transparent, because the one demand that Maheshwar Peri had was that there needs to be a forensic audit that needs to be conducted, the way this examination was conducted and what went wrong, because we have multiple cases that were registered in Bihar, in Gujarat, in Chhattisgarh, in Haryana, and many other places. But the government says that there was no paper leak, and they also say that there was uh, there was nothing nothing alarming. So it's just the case of 1,563 students who got grace marks. So the NTA is actually reducing this entire issue to 1,500 students. It's a case of 1,500 students, but that's not the case. The issue is much bigger. So if you do have any questions, do send us in this chat. In fact, we will get Maheshwar Peri to answer those questions, and we'll put out we will put out a digital story. We'll put out a print story, and to do all this, it takes a lot of effort, it takes resources. So do subscribe to the News Minute. You can see our QR code. So if you want to become a member, just scan this QR code and become a member and support independent journalism. In fact, TNM has been following the NEET story very, very closely. In fact, we have been someone who have been following this story since its inception, the NEET examination particularly, because there have been a lot of issues, statewide issues in Karnataka, issues in Kerala, issues in Tamil Nadu, and particularly after the death of a NEET aspirant Anita in Tamil Nadu, we have been following the impact of NEET as from the social justice point of view as well. So if you want us to continue, the work that we have been doing, so do become a subscriber of the News Minute by scanning this QR code and support independent media. Thank you.